Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at our Google Hangout. This is an exciting one. We're looking at the topic of how technologists can become change makers, and we've really got a wonderful group of people here to talk about that with. Just a little bit of context. My name is Sachin Malhan. I work with Ashoka, leading their Changemakers program. And before I joined Ashoka, I was a technology and education entrepreneur in India. And so just there's a lot of deep interest in the conversation we're going to be having today. This Hangout is a part of a series of discussions. In fact, some of you may have dialed into the first one as well that happened a few weeks back. But it's a part of a series of discussions that are stemming from the launch of a report that Ashoka and Intel collaboratively worked on called Social Entrepreneurs Changing Lives Through ICT. This report is available online on ashoka.org, and Justin's holding it up in case you want to know what it looks like. And it's what really distinguishes it is it's an entrepreneur's perspective of what's happening out there. It's not academic. It is looking at it from the point of view of the innovators and the entrepreneurs. What are the challenges they are facing, and what are the approaches that they are taking to really, transform lives through ICT? And that's the basis of this conversation. We have today a really, really great group of people. Just a kind of brief introduction of the three experts, but more importantly, entrepreneurs that we have today. We have Justin Rattner. Justin, he's done so much, but a brief introduction would be he was the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer of Intel for a long time. He headed up the Intel labs. While he's been there's been a number of initiatives that he's been a part of. He's worked closely with university partners at Intel. He's also now the head of the Intel Foundation. And if you just look at Justin's background, you see someone who's deeply passionate about spreading his knowledge. He's spoken in many different, has spoken at many different events. He's a very, very popular invitee to conferences. And it's just going to be great to have Justin's perspective here as a technologist, as a change maker, and as someone who's also supporting other change makers. Justin, thank you so much. Welcome to this Hangout. Just going on, we have Njideka Hari. She's an Ashoka Fellow, and she is someone whose project is something really close to my heart. She is the President and CEO of Youth for Technology Foundation. It's a nonprofit focused on using the power of technology to transform the lives of youth and women in developing countries. What's really been amazing is the way in which her project has been able to solve multiple challenges, not just supplying people, not just supplying agricultural workers with critical information, but giving youth ICT tools that enable them to act as entrepreneurs. And that's really something that's, it's just fascinating to see someone bringing a multi-faceted perspective to how ICT can be used powerfully. Njideka, welcome to this Google Hangout. She's also an Ashoka Fellow, so especially close to the Ashoka family. We have Till Behnke. Till is the co-founder of Better Place, and he leads the Millicom Foundation. And Till is someone who's also bringing a very diverse perspective, because the ICT solution that he built was a solution that connected the needs of fairly sophisticated users in a developed country, in Germany and in Europe, with projects all around the world. And I'm really fascinated to probe deeper and see what has Till's experience been creating solutions for very different communities of people. And that's something that I hope that we can sort of, get under during this Hangout. Thank you so much, Njideka, Till, Justin, for being here. It's really a privilege, and thank you for making the time to be here. So I'm going to just jump straight into it. I know that the people who are listening in, who are watching this Hangout, are so keen to hear your perspectives, get your insights, and so let's not wait any further. just a starting question to get us going, to get the juices flowing. Firstly, to the technologists in the room, we have Justin and Till, and Njideka, I'm going to come back to you for a reverse perspective after this. But first to Justin and Till. Let's start off with Justin. When you were making your journey from being a technologist to being someone looking at solving and actually solving large social problems, no doubt there have been big learnings for you in terms of what new skills you needed to have, what new learnings you needed to have. Do you look back, Justin, and remember some key milestones for you in terms of your journey from being a technologist to being a change maker?
Wow, there are so many, so many of these. I guess I have to pick one. Let me choose, some more recent examples of things that have, affected me, and really changed my outlook. A few years ago, I got involved with something called the Singularity movement, and basically, singularitarians, as they call themselves, believe that in a finite amount of time, perhaps over the next 30 or 40 years, that machine intelligence will rival or surpass human intelligence. In fact, the point at which they're equal is considered the singularity, and spending time talking to those people and working with those people, you really come to understand how rapidly technology is moving. And having grown up professionally in a company that's sort of all about Moore's law, the rapid advance of chip technology, I was struck by the fact that the laws that govern the progress of technology, apply to many things besides the chip technology, and many of them are moving at this accelerated rate. In fact, that law is called the law of accelerating returns, and that really had a profound effect on me. I don't think until I really stopped to look at the rate of technological progress, and realized that it's advancing, at this geometric rate in fields beyond computing and communications technology. I just hadn't seen the opportunity that kind of rapid advancement can provide, and I would say that's one of the most profound changes in my outlook over let's say the last half dozen or so years.
That's fair. And Justin, do you find that in terms of some of the projects that you're involved in now, how are you seeing that manifest in those projects? How are you seeing your thinking apply, your different thinking apply to those projects?
Well, I think it's changed me from having sort of a stationary view of of the technology. I think most people have more of sort of this notion of punctuated evolution, where the telegraph was invented, and then the telephone was invented, and then the television got invented, and there's sort of these big advances, and they think that's the way technology moves. Where in fact, and it's more evident today, and certainly was evident in the latter part of the 20th century, technology is not just continuously moving, it's accelerating. And so whenever you're thinking about a project these days, you have to be careful not to think in terms of what can I do today, but what can I do a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because the rate of acceleration is so high.
That's a really great insight, and let's hold on to that very interesting point, that what does this mean? What kind of lens do we need to bring to projects on the ground that reflect this reality, this new reality for the world? Thank you so much, Justin. Till, let me bring this question to you. Before you were a technologist, even before Better Place, here you are with being involved in multiple different projects around. You've been on the field in different parts of the world. What do you see as that journey, and what do you see as critical learnings for you in that journey?
So yes, it's true. I also got involved with technology during my studies and during my first jobs in a professional environment, in a for-profit environment. And then when web technology really took off, and just before apps and smartphones came to the picture, I decided to leave the big company I was working for to become an entrepreneur. I collected a few business ideas, most of them for profit, and I think I was just lucky enough to be not good enough in the profit industries or fields that I was looking at, that my network, my mentors would tell me that's all okay, but the only thing that is really exciting is the non-profit idea. And so that was luck. Could have been a for-profit startup, could have made me rich on the monetary side, but now I'm much richer, I think, on other sides. So in moving into the non-profit field, so one of the first learnings, I think, and this is still my view on it, is that there's still less competition. The non-profit sector and social innovation is still so much slower than in the for-profit world. So I think technology, more than in the past, even more than in the past now, it's a field where it's much easier to be a great change maker than to become rich with a for-profit idea. So I think it's just another reason to stay with your social innovation ideas rather than getting out there in the battlefield of just having dollar signs in your eyes. So that's one thing and one encouragement. And then one of the learnings really, I think, is I was looking just as technology as a tool helping to build a solution around a challenge, whether it's for profit or non-profit. So as always, there's a need first, there's a problem, a challenge, and then technology can help to solve it. And I still think that's the way basically we should look at things, and that's why today in this role with the foundation working in 14 developing markets in Africa and Latin America, that we want to source the ideas. We want to see local change makers, local people who see challenges and then build solutions. But that's one thing. The other thing is to look systematically, and I didn't do that as a social entrepreneur myself, but now I'm looking at the field also systematically and see not only at looking at technology as a tool to solve a need that we see, but basically look at innovation in the ways of approaching the problems from the start in a way that you couldn't even have thought of without having those tools, right? And for the last 4 years, I was invited to be consultant innovation advisory board of the German development minister. And if you look at that ministry, for example, they have two challenges internally. One is to mainstream technology. That means that every strategic department of the ministry should also think in how can technology help to achieve our goals. But then this is one side. And the other side is an institution like this should have an innovation department that really thinks all these strategic objectives with technology as a main thing from scratch. Because you come to completely different solutions, whether you mainstream it across the functions you have in an organization, or whether you think from scratch. And the beautiful thing is working with entrepreneurs that use technology to tackle social issues is they normally think from scratch, and you have much more advanced solutions than just little iterations in the old kind of thinking.
Till, that is so interesting. In fact, it resonates very strongly. Some of the findings in the report, especially one which I remember a quote from one of the Ashoka fellows in India, Hilmi Qureshi, who is using mobile learning platforms to educate communities about health and chronic disease. And he speaks about the fact that most people, when they meet him, most of the time when he's talking technology, very specifically technology, is when he's out there in conferences. But actually on the ground, the technology is what he is doing, and the conversation is more about all the work on top of that. So it's less about the technology. So it's it's an interesting perspective where he sees it as very much mainstreamed in his work, and he's not sort of fixating on it, but at the same time, the evolutions that are happening are tremendous because they are tied to communities that are actually testing, iterating, building those solutions.
Great. Let me build on before you move on one point that Justin put out, that it's really accelerating. So I think one thing why I'm really excited to be in this field is especially looking at emerging markets and developing areas of the world is this acceleration. So I think that this kind of tipping point is maybe in the past already, but you see like 100% of Africans will be connected to mobile phone networks. And now the company that funds the foundation I'm running now is basically operating in 14 countries where, for example, in Chad or Congo, we're rolling out 3G and 4G networks. And it's just a matter of time when smartphones become available at a price that not only a small amount of the people can afford them, and I think in this times we will see much faster acceleration, and we see lots of leapfrogging, especially in those areas of the world. That's particularly exciting.
Thanks, to. At this point, let me ask you, Njideka. You don't come from a technologist background, but your work so deeply mainstreams technology. And I would love to, what has been your experience working with technologists, working with technology? Would you, when you work closely with technologists, what are the learnings that you see them having? It's almost as a third-party perspective, Njideka, on your experiences with technologists. You're muted, Njideka. You'll have to unmute. Njideka, we can't hear you. We still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Fantastic. Sorry about that, Sachin. So great to be here today, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's been very inspiring listening to both Justin from Intel Foundation as well as Till about their work and their involvement with technology. You're absolutely right when you say, I am not a technologist. However, I believe in the power of people, and I believe that technology is an enabler. It's an equalizer, and technology absolutely should be a basic human right. At Youth for Technology Foundation, we believe fundamentally in the marriage of education and technology. We believe that education is a major pillar of the knowledge economy, and that technology should be accessible and affordable to every single person on the entire planet. To this effect, Youth for Technology Foundation has been working in this space for close to 15 years now. Our mission is really simple, but it's powerful, and really our mission is about creating enriched communities where the appropriate use of technology affords opportunities for young people and women living in developing economies. We believe in youth. We believe in young people as they are co-creators of very powerful information and communication technology solutions. They also have extremely long productivity cycles, so we invest in these young people living in these developing world communities. We also believe in their mothers, women who often are the economic pillars of the communities we work in and the communities we serve. These women oftentimes reinvest as much as 90% of their household income back into these communities that we serve. So over the last 15 years, we've been introducing ICT and entrepreneurship training to both these clients. We look at these clients, our beneficiaries, the consumers of these programs and services and technologies. Really, we look at them as business partners, and we really align our entire value chain to provide a very personalized customer journey for these clients throughout the entire cycle of working with young people and their mothers, young people and women, we are constantly asking for their feedback as we co-develop programs that help them create businesses, that help them along the path of education so that they can either create jobs or gain viable employment upon graduation from the university. So we focus on people first, and then technology as an enabler of getting them to the next level, of providing them and their communities with economic sustainability. We focus, of course, on building collaborative relationships with our clients, and we find win-win opportunities for acting within this partnership. Over the years, we've developed, working in these communities, several programs that utilize mobile value-added services, for instance, that utilize community radio and the internet to help young people find jobs, to help young people get upgraded on their skills that they have and acquire new skills in the ICT and the technology space so that they can actually create ICT businesses in the countries that they work in. Take Nigeria, for instance. Nigeria has one of Africa's largest ICT sectors. It's backed by about 18 billion in investment dollars, and it's been experiencing a growth rate of somewhere around 9% over the last several years. Clearly, a foundation exists for a robust digital economy. However, that doesn't come with serious challenges that we must overcome, and whether that includes the lack of reliable and affordable power or a nascent ICT infrastructure, or even an insufficient supply of qualified, trained entrepreneurs and ICT entrepreneurs. And that's what we focus on, providing young people with the skill set so that they can transition into the digital economy seamlessly and give back to their communities through job creation. And we also focus on their mothers and women also as they try to establish their entrepreneurial ventures. We teach them how to use ICTs and mobile technologies to open up new areas where they can sell their products, new opportunities for them to be mentored by other women in the same line of business. And so that is really what we are focused on. First, people, and then the application of technology for development.
Thanks, Njideka. Thank you so much. Just a couple of things coming out of that introduction. Justin, a question to you. One disconnect that we often see in bringing the power of big technology, companies like Intel, companies like Cisco, and others, to the social challenges that actually exist is that whole big company, small solution problem. And essentially, the best way to explain it is often what's needed is long, intimate interaction between the entrepreneurs and the innovators and the company. What's needed is a messy solution, and very often the way companies are designed, it's hard to deliver something, to stay involved for so long when the outcomes are not completely certain from day one, and to iterate over such a long period of time. What are some of the good models that you're seeing which are actually allowing for effective collaboration between technologists who are used to working at a big scale and with smaller projects that could potentially one day offer disruptive large-scale solutions, but require that patient iteration and long-term work? I would love to have your perspective, especially since you've been at the lab for so long, what you think about what's working here and what's not.
Yeah, it's really a really great question, and it was actually when you asked the first question, I was thinking of this as another example. We were working in India, in fact, with a large Indian corporation. We'll go nameless for this discussion, but we were working on retail banking solutions. We have a R&D team in Bangalore, and in one of our meetings, one of the principals said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about this thing we're working on. We call frugal engineering or frugal innovation, if you prefer." And really, what he was talking about was the bias, the natural bias, the tendency for large corporations to focus on, if you will, enterprise scale solutions, and then to think that, well, those are really great solutions, and now all we have to do is find let's say a retail channel through which we can deliver those solutions potentially to to social entrepreneurs and their organizations. But frugal engineering steps back and really focuses on what it's often called the bottom of the triangle, where you're talking about much larger potential user bases, potentially billions of users as opposed to millions or hundreds of millions as you move up the triangle to the more developed countries. We got so intrigued with this idea, we actually changed the mission of that lab in Bangalore, and they became our frugal engineering or frugal innovation center, and they started to focus on problems that could not couldn't tolerate the enterprise scale solution. And in fact, one of those has actually gone to product, and it's a little handheld device that allows you to get an EKG, an electrocardiogram, that is comparable to a 12-lead EKG, which you typically get in a hospital or a clinic setting, and it can be operated by the user. And the brilliant, I think, piece of frugality is that it makes a Bluetooth connection to just a 2G phone. Most 2G phones now support Bluetooth headsets, and the idea was, well, let's utilize that available link to get to the cloud. And one of my favorite demos, when I was visiting Bangalore probably a little over a year ago, was they took one of the engineers in that group. They put him on a stationary bicycle and they had him pedaling like crazy. And and I'm going, okay, where is this going? And then his phone rang, and the phone rang. He answered the phone, and the phone message says, heart rate has exceeded normal limits. Please cease whatever your current activity is and call your doctor. And the fact that that 2G technology, 2G phones are widely available in India, as they are in many other developing areas, and with a link to a purpose-built, very low-cost device that dramatically improve the quality of care for heart patients. That's the power of frugal innovation, when you sort of rethink everything you're doing in terms of what's appropriate for the culture, the society, the economic status of your end user. And I think there's so much more potential, and those guys are off doing new things in frugal engineering now, and I think you're gonna see a lot more of that from Intel, and you're gonna see a lot more of that from, I think, other big high-tech companies who buy into this notion of frugal engineering.
Till, I know that you have tons to contribute, so I'm going to ask you the same question, but I'm going to ask it with a little caveat. And it's a bit of a follow-up almost to Justin. So Justin, if you want to come back to this at some later point, please feel free. But I'm going to ask you this, Till, which is, sometimes the appropriate technology or the combination of things that are needed to make a solution work on the ground could be a little bit of technology, could be a little bit of like the human design, and so many different things. And sometimes it's not necessarily scalable, or it's not imminent as to how it can be scalable. So keeping in mind the fact that not even at the frugal engineering or frugal innovation level, sometimes we're going to need technology innovation that is not necessarily scalable immediately. When you're looking at that, do you see that as a challenge, or do you believe that there is that it always happens that if something is useful to a certain group of people, it can be scaled to another group of people if it's a simple enough technology. So keeping that little question, that counter of whether scale is always going to be possible, I'm going to come to you, Till, and get your inputs, and then maybe come back to Justin at a later point.
Okay, so let me start, because I was now tempted to build on Justin's story from an entrepreneur's perspective, like starting with a small enterprise. But let me answer this one first about the scale. I believe I've seen some innovations now, local innovations, that would only work locally with the technology that was built as a solution, right? But then the scalable thing about it was the idea, and the idea could be replicated in a way that it would then be amended to match other local needs, and then a different technical solution would be needed. So, but the original thought, the original innovation, basically, and then also the not just for the solution, but as part of the solution, the financial sustainability and scalability. So this was always scalable, and I think this is what we're always looking for, like that it can be replicated somehow, whether it's just the idea that can be replicated, or if it's the technology itself. That's a beautiful thing about software. In theory, you can copy and paste and roll out somewhere else. In reality, most of the times when we take a solution from one country, one setting to another, you end up with a second solution much more than just having exactly the same thing. I always refer back when people say, but our country, our setting is completely different, our user base completely different, to things like Facebook. Luckily, they're out there that says no, in 200 plus countries, people will understand how to click on the menu, right, and how to work with the wall and stuff. So, well, but coming back, I think it's scalability in some part of the innovation is something what we always look for, because it's the many small solutions. They're great, but they don't need all the help, all the mentoring, all the build-up, all the iterations to be then mass marketable. So they are out there, and I believe they're in an informal sphere and will make as much change as the few big ones. Just as a theory. But I'm always working with something where the original idea is made for scale. And now let me touch on briefly on my experience on with starting my own venture and working with. It was always made to scale. We wanted to bring this idea to scale, and so we reached out to big companies from day one to work with them. I actually quit my job from one of the biggest companies in the world. It was Daimler and Chrysler at the time, and was lucky enough to get them as their corporate social responsibility department to be a client, and use the crowdfunding software, and that was before Kickstarter existed, to do employee giving campaigns. So they got so excited that from the headquarters they decided to roll this out for a global employee giving campaign, a matching fund that they ran with all the employees around the world. And the software, the whole system was so not ready. It was only made for payments in Germany. It was all just the terms and conditions were just in German language. It was just euro currency, and they had like a horrible conversion rate for the whole campaign everywhere outside Germany. So, and this is just one example when we found out that basically some of the biggest partners we found, it was really tough for them to work with us, and tough for us to keep them on board and do these long-term iterations and help us grow and also professionalize the way we work to basically fit. But for those that did it, helped really themselves to stay in the game for a while and be open to work with messy solutions and help them to grow and professionalize. And I think it always needs both. It needs those that start from scratch, because innovation is never within a big institution. Innovation is somewhere out there where there is freedom, and then it only can have a big impact, an impact on bigger scale, when basically this free mindset comes together with somebody who says, okay, now we've got this kind of solution, but we need to adapt it so that it can work with mass marketable infrastructure, for example. And I think what we see is more big institutions realize that they have to be open for innovation to collaborate with smaller, more messy setups. This is one thing. And the second thing is also in big institutions, more and more, they do like and understand the concept of social entrepreneurship, and that basically that their for-profit world can actually connect to making social, positive social impact. And so more and more companies are open to work with those. And I see Ashoka fellows like myself moving not away from being a social entrepreneur, but moving more into working with corporations to help them utilize their core competencies and their infrastructure and all the services and products they have for social impact. And I think we will see more of that.
I think that brings up, I'm going to just ask folks online, please submit your questions, please put in your questions, and I'll pick a few that we can bring to this group. But till it kind of almost throws up a question which we don't have to answer now, but what will it look like to scale solutions as opposed to scaling technology? And is there a future in the world, and what is the future for companies, for big companies, in terms of scaling solutions? Because there are many more elements out there, messy as we say, and I think that's a topic of conversation by itself. Justin, at some point in time, we'll get you back for a discussion on, the solutions versus technology lens, and and scaling solutions versus scaling technology.
Sachin, let me just make a point on that, if you don't mind. Both Justin and Till's comment regarding innovation. As I sit here, I imagine a world in which CSR will no longer be relevant. The CSR departments will no longer be a part of big corporations, because indeed these big corporations will need to and have to open up their R&D and their innovation labs to the consumers that they serve. And so there wouldn't be, a CSR initiative serving XYZ consumer, but these consumers, these clients, these beneficiaries will be an integral part of the process. We all know these consumers have become more complex. They are changeable with now distinct needs and values, and also they get information from a variety of sources. The internet has erased that geographic boundary and that closure, and now this means that customers can consume and interact in a variety of ways. They absolutely need to be a part of the human-centered design when we think about innovation and when we think about co-creating solutions that solve the needs of developing economies, especially where technology is involved.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that insight, Njideka. I was actually going to come to you for a follow-up question. Justin, when this call started, you remember you were speaking about the fact that this acceleration of change is happening not just in technology, but in everything. And the fact of the matter is, I think it's literally in everything. In terms of how work is evolving, how social structures are evolving, it's a profound change. And people are thinking it's a change only in technology, but actually it's a wider change. And it almost brings to mind a question that I want to ask, I want to pick up what you said and ask the question to Njideka, because she's working with youth, and then come maybe to you, Justin, after that. Njideka, what do you see as the systemic changes to prepare young people for that kind of future? Right? Like, are we really preparing the next generation of young people? And Justin, you can answer that as the young technologists, but what are we really preparing young people for a future where givens are far less than they ever were? So Njideka, I'll start with you and then I'll come to Justin after that.
Sure. So, when we look at where young people start from, it's the educational system. And oftentimes in developing nations, the education system, the employers, and these young people all exist in parallel universes. They have different conclusions to the same idea, which is there are not enough jobs for young people. Africa, for instance, is generating jobs, several jobs, but for young people between the ages of anywhere from 22 to 23, I'm sorry, 22 to 28, only 73 million jobs per the World Bank were created between 2000 and 2008. So young people are having to understand and experience really a cultural mind shift change. 97% of the young people we work with at Youth for Technology Foundation come to us never viewing entrepreneurship as a viable career. Not once. You know, they're thinking when they graduate from the universities, they'll become, you know, doctors, lawyers, engineers, you know, these professional careers, but they never once have thought about entrepreneurship. So our role involves not just providing them with the hard skills, in our case, the ICT, the digital literacy skills, but also the soft skills, the empathy. If they're thinking of becoming technology entrepreneurs, obviously you have to understand people. You have to be in the center of what people's needs are and what those people, your clients, your consumers, envision the solutions to their concrete realities are. And so we teach empathy, we teach leadership skills, we teach them about teamwork and civic engagement on the soft side. And we believe those soft skills are as important as those hard skills to prepare these young people for the field of work or to prepare them for entrepreneurship and to create these jobs that we need in these communities that we work in.
Thank you so much. Justin, do you want to follow up specifically from the point of view of young technologists or young people who will grow into technology? You're muted, Justin. You'll have to unmute.
It clicked off. I don't know. It's got a mind of its own. You can't trust these computers. What can I say? Yeah, actually, you know, I see really attitudes, I think, from, you know, from this generation, whatever term you want to apply to it, millennials or what have you, that, you know, their outlook is quite different than you know, than their predecessors, and actually I've been asking people why they think that is, that you know, they're much more entrepreneurial, they're much more interested in, you know, doing things that are going to make you know, that are going to improve the human condition, you know, and it sort of goes back to Njideka's, you know, comment about, you know, wanting to be doctors and lawyers and everything like that. You know, maybe doctors and lawyers, but doctors and lawyers who go to, you know, parts of the world and address social issues. I really think there's you know, there's a new cultural dimension to this that's very important, and I also agree that companies are tuning into it. You know, not in the same way, not in an identical way, but, you know, sort of taking the character of that particular company and saying, you know, how do we become a part of this? What can we do to enhance it? You know, a lot of the work we do through the foundation is, you know, is about encouraging this entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, we've run the Intel Global Challenge for, you know, a number of years. Obviously, we sponsor Ashoka Fellows. You know, those are just, you know, a few of the examples of how we're really trying to cultivate what, you know, I really see as a key dimension of the youth movement of today. I mean, every generation has its youth movement, but I think this focus on meeting human need is, you know, is a profound one, and it comes at a time, and I think this builds on something Till was saying. It comes at a time when the technology itself is becoming more and more effortless. You know, that building things, and this touches on the maker movement, you know, that building things is being able to build intelligent things, and being able to provide surprisingly sophisticated services with relatively relatively little programming effort. All of this is self-reinforcing. And you know, we talk now, you know, beyond the maker movement, we talk about this revolution in manufacturing, what I like to call desktop manufacturing. You know, you're all familiar with the print button in your print dialog box. And, you know, imagine in the not too distant future, that button doesn't say print, it says make. And, you know, and your design files, go into the ether, so to speak, and, you know, and some of those elements of the design are printed on 3D printers, you know, others use different technologies, but the supply chain, if you will, that's behind that has been optimized for, you know, for low volume unique designs, right? It's sort of, you know, it's sort of mass customization, I guess, is the term that's used. And I think this speaks to another point Till made, which is, you know, it's not going to be the same design everywhere. You know, it's going to have to be tailored to, you know, the local needs and, you know, and the cultural aspects as well. But being able to just push make, having designed, you know, something with these marvelous tools, I think is transformative in itself, and you know, and I think that, you know, I think in the next decade, that make button in a make dialogue is going to be as commonplace as the print dialogue, the print button is the print dialogue. You know, one other thing, and you know, and then I'll turn it back. This idea that companies are creating technology really to serve entrepreneurs and, you know, and to serve makers in the maker movement. I mean, it's having an effect at Intel, and, you know, we're for the first time starting to think about product lines that really aim at, I think, what you called the messy, you know, sort of entrepreneurial efforts. I think you're going to start to see, you know, product lines that, you know, complement the, you know, the more traditional products from, you know, from these big companies that are really aimed at creating opportunities for social entrepreneurship and for addressing human needs, and that's very exciting. And as I see it at Intel, it's basically coming off of exercises, you know, like frugal innovation, that has given us the understanding, you know, the insights and the ideas that you need to create that new spectrum of products.
Thank you so much, Justin. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to quickly take a few questions, and I'm going to come back for one final round of inputs. But just a comment on what you said, Justin. Maybe the fact that making will not be so complicated will liberate us to start focusing on the beneficiary communities and really understand what to make for them, right? It takes away all the effort that's gone into making, and I think sometimes technologists, myself included, have obsessed about the making and lost sight of the solving the problem. And I think that might be a big sort of shift.
Yeah. Yeah, the line I like to use is, if you can think it, we can build it.
Yeah. That's great. Just some questions. The question I want to take, there's one that comes to my mind is, just from your experience, and I'm going to ask this question to Njideka, from your experience with what you've done with youth, how useful has open source technology been? And this is the question that comes from Manish Arora in India. Manish, thank you so much for joining us. So Njideka, could you maybe reflect on that a bit?
Absolutely. We fundamentally believe in innovation and giving young people, of course, the tools that they need to change their lives. And whatever that life-changing innovation is, we definitely support and encourage them along the way. Open source technologies, of course, are a part of that innovation, which is really where we see in communities that have constraints, we see this type of innovation. We see the interest in more open source technologies and using these platforms available to access, you know, widely available educational content, for instance. You know, innovations like the Raspberry Pi, the Rachel Pi, and the ability to deliver open course content is just myriad, and it changes the landscape. And early on in the discussion, you know, I introduced the concept of the marriage of education and technology, and we look at that very, very closely. And we believe that once young people have the tools that are readily available to them, are at low or no costs in their affordability, you know, range, and they can access, they can do amazing things. They have the ability to tinker with these tools, to design ultimately how they view their world, and to change it. And so, we see the advent of open source technologies really moving in pace with whether it's the cost of mobile devices going down, access of massive open online courseware to young people living, in rural communities, being able to access that content via, data transportation. So you don't have to have access to the internet to actually be able to leverage the knowledge from massive open online content. You can, we work on transporting the data, take the data to the people where they need the information. And so we really see this as an area that's going to continue to grow, and young people are going to continue to find ways to learn and support this ecosystem of innovators within this space.
What I really like there, I'm sure Manish, you got that little insight there, was the fact that there's a learning there when young people are actually tinkering around with the technology that they're also using. So when you're shifting from the consumer mindset to the value creator mindset, I think there's a value to open source technology because you can tinker and actually learn with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And earlier Justin mentioned, very briefly the maker movement and the introduction or the disruption of 3D printing technologies. Even in that space, we see open source 3D printers. Imagine a world where a young person living in Kenya is able to actually create and make her own 3D printer, living in a rural community, and is able to, manufacture products and provide these products via digital online sales platforms to other young people in their community or families in their community. This entirely changes the landscape. We move from, an aid to Africa methodology and mentality to really being made in Africa and the pride that comes with made in Africa.
Powerful. Thank you so much. I'm going to pick up one more question, and I'm going to...
Can I add just 2 sentences on the open source software, just from different perspectives, because I love open source software, and I'm a big supporter of not only the theory and the idea, but also of doing it. But having built my own social business and non-profit company, we've chosen a non-profit setup around purely a digital service. We've decided to put out a lot of the modules that have been developed by our professional software development team out for open source whenever we could. But then there's, at the same time, the core of the system is basically what was the core of the business model. Being a non-profit, we still wanted the professional team, best software developers, best people on the team, and pay salaries for them to stay and have a professional organization. We had to monetize within the non-profit setup. We had to monetize the software to build white label solutions and to give people access to using the platform. So I want to encourage people to be very, to look into the topic and really see what are the parts we can share and offer the world to replicate and build on, have an open API, have open access to the core platform as much as you can, but then you also want to have and run a professional social business and not just a bunch of volunteers. Nothing against volunteer organizations, nothing against starting with a volunteer core, but for some of the ideas, and certainly for the one I build up, and some of them that I invest in as Millicom now, a sustaining business model is at the core of a social business, because that's the differentiator to an NGO that always looks for tax money or donations to survive. Needs a business model. You sometimes have to monetize the software you're building and cannot open source all of it.
Till, thank you so much for that insight. I'm glad you followed up. I'm going to fold, because we are almost at time, I'm going to fold in a common question that I'm seeing. In fact, 3 or 4 people are asking that question in different ways. And I'm going to ask it to each one of you for your closing comments, right? So what I'm doing is I'm taking the question that at some level Mudit is asking, and that also Laurie Block is asking, and I'm going to kind of frame that as a closing comment question for each of you. Question is, so I'm a technologist and I really want to start solving a social problem. how, from your experience, what's a good place to start? What's a way of thinking that starts me off constructively in solving that problem? Let me start off with Justin, and then I'll go to Till, and then just finish off with Njideka. Justin, I know you're almost at time. How would you recommend a person even starts to approach it? What makes sense? You're muted, Justin. You'll have to unmute. Sorry.
There are so many ways to come at it. It's hard to narrow it down to to one. But I think the power is in the idea, and I think it takes this is just, I guess, maybe cautionary. When we look at things to fund, we really focus on the quality of the idea, and I would my simple advice is to really get the idea straight in your head before you start to engage, because who you will engage and how you'll engage will very much depend on what it is you want to do. And it may be that through open source and other low cost mechanisms, you can get to prototype, you can get to proof of concept. In other cases, you're going to need to pursue grants, and there are so many programs out there now looking for good ideas to fund good ideas that it's just a matter of picking which one and going after the funding opportunities that way.
Thank you very much, Justin. Justin, if at some point in time, I know you have a hard stop at 1 if you need to leave, I just want to thank you tremendously. Thank you so much for sharing your insights here. If you can stay on for a couple of minutes, that will be fantastic as well. I'll leave it completely up to you.
No, I'll hang on, or hang out, I guess is the correct term.
I'd love to go to Njideka. Njideka, I'm a technologist just getting started, don't even know how to think about it. How would you suggest I take the first step?
Start with the people. Go to where they are. Get an understanding of what they have and what their concrete realities are, and then you build. And when you think about technologies and disruptive technologies, there are 4 core areas, right? Technologies where the impact is broad. Technologies where there's significant economic value. Technologies where the economic value is transformative. And then finally, where the technology is rapidly advancing. So take, for instance, technologies that have broad applicabilities that can transform multiple industries and a wide range of knowledge workers. The mobile internet, for example, could actually affect how as many as 5 million people go about their lives, giving them tools to become potential innovators or entrepreneurs, and making the mobile internet one of our most impactful technologies. So I would say start with the people and build with the people around the understandings that truly the people have.
Thank you so much. Resonates very strongly with me. When I worked with the blind community for many years, and I came in there thinking of one thing, but like a couple of years of working with them, it's completely different direction. So, Till, maybe you can finish with a comment on what would you tell that technologist?
Well, the question was about the starting point. I would say start with yourself and look and define first what kind of role you should be playing in, tackling a social challenge with technology. Because maybe, let me use the word, to define for yourself how geeky you are, right? Are you more the entrepreneur that sees in this, and to be honest, I mean, with all the tipping point in technology and digitalization around the world, it's still such an offline world. So you as a person who understands technology, you'll see broken processes, broken things in the world out there, and you just see solutions for yourself, and you ask yourself, why has nobody built this? Mm-hmm. So either you're this kind of entrepreneur that sees broken things and has a solution in his or her mind, or you're more the type that sees, okay, if somebody has identified the problem and drafted like a solution for the world, you're the person who then can actually build or start building the architecture for the technical solution, then you should really look for those that run around with those ideas and join a team of people and be the person to build the solution and not basically come up with the idea from scratch. But you'll identify for yourself. So I think that's the starting point to define your own role, and then build the teams to create the whole solution, and then obviously, and this builds on all the other statements, look for the right people around there, because with the right people you can build the right tools and actually ship them to the right audience in the end.
That's just the perfect way to end today. I'm going to just quickly sum up a couple of things. There's just so many insights, so I don't think I can bullet out all of them. But one insight that really stands out and seems to connect multiple themes, and please, let me know if I'm imagining it, but the fact that you see this tremendous acceleration in society, it makes it critical for us to be close to the people that we are solving problems for, because of exactly that fact. Things are changing extremely fast. If we are close to only we're not close to the people, but close to one technology, that's going to change too. So, working closely with people, with the communities that we want to create value for, at some level mitigates the rapid change in the way things are happening today, and allows us to quickly adapt what needs to be there. But another insight that I think is almost gotten kind of pushed to the front is the fact that we need to prepare young people for this new reality. And at some level, we are seeing a change that's happening on its own. And Justin, you were talking about how young people today think differently. But our institutions are not necessarily supporting the change in thinking. They are being reactive, not responsive. So what are the institutions, schools, colleges, programs like Njideka's that are going to actually help institutionalize that change, that prepares people for their own changing reality? So I just want to leave with that little insight. And thank you so much. Thank you, Justin. Thanks, Njideka. Thank you, Till. I hope I have the opportunity to connect again. Thank you, all the people who are on the Hangout. Now we can get back to making some more change. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. It was good to be here.
Thanks.
Thank you.